Hello everyone, welcome to GV Learning once again. And today I want to talk a little bit about pivot tables. I know that some people are confused of what they are and how you go ahead and create a pivot table, but it's really not that hard to create a simple pivot table. And today I just want to show you how you go ahead and start a pivot table and what kind of data you can go ahead and use in the pivot table. Now over here I have an Excel spreadsheet open and it has several data in it. It has order dates, region, the rep, the items that were sold, the units that were sold, the unit cost, and the total cost of the item as well. And what we're going to go ahead and do here is we are going to go ahead and make this into a pivot table. Now, the only thing you need to do when you want to create a pivot table is you need to have a set of data and you need to have headers in the data. Also, we need to select the data that we want to use in the pivot table. Now, this is kind of incredible because if you know the data, like over here, it shows all the data here that I want to use, except for this over here, which I'm just going to eliminate. That is just a nice little thing of the average and the mean and whatnot. But let's say I want this data to use, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and select just one cell inside the data. Then I'm going to go over here to insert, and I'm going to go over here to pivot table. So I'm going to go ahead and click on pivot table, and automatically Excel actually senses all the data that you want to go ahead and put into the pivot table. Now granted, you do have to have it organized. It has to be headers, it has to be organized into sets, like right here we have dates, regions, and so forth, like I showed you. But it is going to select the data that you want. And we scroll down here, it's all the data that we want on that pivot table. Okay, so now that we have that assorted, then we go ahead and make sure that when we're creating the pivot table, that is the data that we want. And do we want to put the pivot table on this new worksheet or existing worksheet? I like to do it on a new worksheet so that I can go ahead and work with it. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And now it takes me to another worksheet. As you can see here, it's a new worksheet, but now I have what is called pivot table fields. And on pivot table fields, you have all the headers that you had on the data. You see that there? Just to be real quick, there's 4 categories here that you want to focus on. One where it says filters, columns, rows, and values. Let's say that I wanted to go ahead and just look up how much per region they had in sales. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this region section over here, and I'm going to put it in the rows column. So I'm just going to go over here, rows, right? So we have central, west, and east, meaning that those regions are going to be put in a table here under rows. Now we want to assign values to them, correct? We want to assign values to them. So another thing that we can do is we can just go ahead and put the totals under the values, or the total sales for in other words that we want to say. So you're going to click the total values and voila. So now we have central, east, and west values of those regions and so forth. What about if we wanted to see how much reps for each region that they sold? So let's say I want to go ahead and put the rep here under filter. Now it says here all, right? But if you scroll down here, we can choose a rep and then how much they sold in each individual area. So let's say Jill. And I press OK. And Jill only sold in the central area about $17,499.8787. We can go ahead and pick another one, Howard. Press OK. And now Howard sold in the east. If we want to go back and do everybody, you just press all again. And that's the numbers for all reps as well. So the last thing that we can do is we can go ahead and do columns, meaning that it'll show things that we sold under columns, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put the items that we've sold here in the sales report. And I'm going to put it under columns, and voila. As you can see here, well, it's kind of you can actually go ahead and set the centered for anything inside a pivot table. But now we have the binders, the desks, the pens, the pen sets, the pencils, and then the totals for each region for each of those items. And then the totals for each item as well. If you wanted to go ahead and actually give it dollar signs, you can actually go ahead and do so. Remember that in Excel, you do want to go ahead and make sure that your cells are nicely aligned. So that's a little bit about pivot tables. I didn't get too much into details. I just wanted you guys to get started to know how to create a pivot table as you will. All right. Thank you very much. And I hope this helps.